Hi everyone, my name is Jenny and welcome back to my creative space. In today's video, I am going to do a cumulative book haul of all the books that I have bought since the beginning of this year. I have challenged myself to kind of slow down on my book buying and be a little bit more intentional about the books that I pick up and bring onto my shelves, as I'm just trying not to spend as much on books because I think last year there were quite a few that I had bought and then I ended up selling it on Pingo or returning it back to Barnes & Noble. And so this year I've wanted to utilize so much more of my local library resources, and I also have been leaning so much heavier on using audiobooks to read. And so I think this year so far I've been doing really well with my book buying. Most of the books I've bought have been on my radar or have been on an anticipated release book list. So I am going to do something a little bit fun since it is June. Happy Pride, everyone. I wanted to do the books in like a rainbow code order to just, make it a little bit fun, a little bit more exciting, and do something cute for Pride Month. The first book that I have is going to be a black book. And this was actually put on my radar from one of my friends, and it's called The Pivot Year by Brianna Wiest. This book is supposed to be like a motivational daily read. I will say that I was really good at reading this for about a month and a half, and I kind of just fell off. So I think I'm going to get back into this, but it's kind of like these daily little prompts that just get your mind thinking. I think I might go back to switching it up and reading it at the beginning of the day. I had prior read it like at the end of my day to kind of just like wind down, but maybe that isn't the right way for me to do it specifically. So that is book number one that I've hauled. The second book that I hauled, this book was actually put on my radar by Stephanie from Stephanie Bookish, and that is Real by Kennedy Ryan. This one had a completely recover. I think that the original one was indie, but this one follows like an actress and a filmmaker, and there's a bit of tension between them as she is the star of his movie, and he's had this sort of scandal where he had been involved with a prior actress from another one of his films, and he's like, she's so enthralling to me, but I kind of don't want another scandal on my hands. But sometimes when the chemistry is real, it is hard to deny, and that is the romance between the two of them. I am hoping that I get to this in my summer TBR. Summer is coming up quite soon when I'm filming this, but I've heard that this is such a great romance, and I've heard Kennedy Ryan in general is such a great author. The next book that I have is Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford, and this is the last book in the Windy City series. This follows our main character Rio, who we've seen sprinkled throughout the first 4 books in this series, and he's a hockey player, and this is a second chance romance with his childhood sweetheart Holly, I believe her name is, and this one is a romance between them as Holly is hired to remodel his home, and there's quite a lot of tension between the two. I am about 10 chapters into this one right now. It's my current read, and it just has that Liz Tomford magic. I am kind of reading it slowly before bed because it just makes me a little sad that one of my favorite romance series is winding down. This one, though, has quite a bit more angst than the other Liz Tomford books, but so far I've been really enjoying getting to know Rio and getting to see a little bit more behind his character, a little bit more behind the silly, goofy person that we got to see in the first 4 books, and it's just been such a delightful time. The next book that I have, which is going to land in our orange category, because that's the color that's on here, is The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. This book is an anticipated read for me, as I did love and enjoy On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean, but I had sampled the first chapter of this recently, and it just felt a little bit heavy for me. I feel like this is going to break my heart, make me sob, make me cry, and I don't think I'm in the emotional position to be reading this book right now. But when I get to it, I just know that Ocean Vuong is going to rewire my brain chemistry. I know it's going to be a very impactful read, and I'm just very excited to get into this when I'm in a better mental place. This book, it has a dashing of red, a little bit of a cream color, so I'm smacking it in between the orange and yellow category. And this is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This was gifted to me by one of my friends, Jonathan. Thank you so much for the gift. I am slowly rereading this series, and this is the second book in the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy, where we follow Fitz as he's this bastard son of the crown prince, and he's trying to navigate his way through the court and trying to find his place when he is so ostracized as the bastard. This one is my number one book in the Farseer trilogy, so I'm so excited to get back into this. And the reason why I have this, even though I have the UK copy, the US copy, I want to like really thoroughly annotate, and it just has this beautiful flop. If you've ever seen a UK copy or like just UK paperbacks in general, they're so stiff, and like my wrists are kind of weak, kind of frail, and having to open up those books and keep them open while I read and like write in them is quite difficult. And the US ones just open and like stay open very nicely, and it's just less work on the old wrists here, so I'm very happy and thankful that I was gifted this beautiful floppy copy. The next book that I have is Martyr by Kaveh Kabar. This one I've heard a lot of talk about it. I think last year it must have been either the Barnes & Noble pick or, oh, it says Barnes & Noble monthly pick. Well, this is for the Barnes & Noble that I bought it at. But I think last year when it released, the hardcover copy was everywhere. But I definitely like reading lit fic better on like a floppy paperback. And so I've been waiting for this one to come out. This one, I believe, centers the thematic of death, and our main character goes and interviews like people who are on like death's door or in hospice, I believe. And I think there's like this central character that he goes and visits who is like actively dying in this and is using the last moments of their life in a sort of art exhibition. I could have made that all up, and if I did, I apologize. This isn't like a book review or summary. I'm just showing you books that I've bought. But one of my friends last year read this and it deeply impacted them. And I'm just so excited to get into it. Again, a heavier topic, and it's definitely going to be one that I will make sure that I'm in the right headspace before I read this. And at that same Barnes & Noble trip that I went to, I ended up buying Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. This one was not on my radar at all, but when I bought Martyr, I was just browsing my Barnes & Noble, and a bookseller came up to me and was like, hey, like, if you're looking for any recommendations, like, let me know. And I was like, I'm just browsing, thank you so much. And they came back a second time. I was in there for quite a while, and they saw me holding Martyr, and they suggested this book, one of their favorite books that they've read. And if you want a book that makes you cry, this is the book for you. And I said, you know, I do love a good cry from time to time. Centers grief. I believe the main character is the husband of the wife who had passed away, and I think it follows the husband and the two sons grappling with the loss of their mother and wife. Cautiously optimistic that this could be a new favorite. The next book that I have is Unloved by Peyton Corinne. This is the second book in a interconnected romance series that follows like college hockey romance, and this one specifically follows Freddie and Ro, and it's like a tutoree kind of romance. Freddie has dyslexia, and dyscalculia, I believe, and so he struggles a lot with just like his academic progress because obviously his disabilities, and he needs help from the tutoring center. And Ro ends up being enlisted to be his tutor kind of against her will until she realizes like the resources and the people who should have been supporting him are really shitty and really terrible people. And they kind of have this romance together. They kind of have this very tentative, like friends to lovers. It's definitely a long, kind of little bit slower of a build, but I really love the emotion and the impact in this one. And this was actually put on my radar by Erin from Booked and Busy. If you don't follow her, you should. She has some of the greatest recommendations, and I think my favorite part about her recommendations is even if the book isn't for me, I love her enthusiasm when she talks about books that like she really loves, and you can really tell when she really, really loves a book. And this one was one of those books. I just really love the dynamic between the two. I loved how like funny they were together, the banter, and like how understanding the both of these characters were to each other. And despite this being like a younger 20s romance, it still really, really worked for me, and I had a lot of fun with this. The next book that I have is A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second book in the Anna and Din mystery series. I don't know what the actual like series name is, but this one follows our main character Din, who is like this apprentice investigator, and he apprentices for like one of the most renowned detectives within this kingdom. And this one just follows him investigating what looks like a typical locked room murder mystery, but it ends up being so deeply embroiled in this political intrigue within this kingdom and within this city. And it was just a fantastic book. I think book one, I had a great time with it. I loved the murder mystery dynamic within a fantasy world. But I think Robert Jackson Bennett just really solidified this series for me with this one because of how great the character work was in this and getting to learn so much more about our characters. You can tell Robert Jackson Bennett loves writing in this world, and I think this is such a great fantasy mystery read. The next book that I have is another gifted book from my friend Ty, and that is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. We had this book exchange that her and I both kind of annotated our copies and sent it to each other. And so I picked Heavenly Bodies for her, and then she picked Fear the Flames, which is so cute because I think the authors also are friends with each other. So the fact that we as friends had both picked like these books and annotated it and gave it to each other is so cute. Funny enough, she didn't realize that I read this, and then Heavenly Bodies, when I bought for her, I didn't realize she read that. So we both made the mistake of getting each other a book that we both had already read, but this one is such a special copy to me because she annotated it. And this one is a fantasy romance where we follow this princess who I think she's kind of disowned by her father, or she runs away from her father. It's been a while since I read it, and she's trying to go back to her kingdom and take her dragons back. And I think the second book comes out this fall or something like that, but I'm so excited to kind of reread this book and read Ty's annotations. I am just so excited to crack this open and see all the personalizations she left. And speaking of Peyton Corinne, my next book in the blue category is Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. This is the first book in that hockey romance, college romance series, and this one follows our main character Reese and Sadie, and they kind of are struggling with a lot of things in their personal lives. Reese has this struggle with PTSD from an injury he'd gotten from the prior hockey season, and Sadie is struggling with being a provider for her two younger brothers, and her father has alcoholism and is just not somebody who is there who's really supporting her and her brothers. And so this one is quite a heavy book. I think Unloved as well has some heavier topics going on in there, but I think the way Peyton Corinne handles those topics and brings these characters together are just so well done. There is a lot of angst in this one, and it just feels so right in a college romance setting, but they both kind of meet each other at the ice skating rink when they're both trying to kind of avoid certain things in their life. He's a hockey player, she's a ice skater, and their romance kind of builds from there. This one's much shorter than Unloved, and I think I enjoyed the pacing much more in this, but this is such a great romance series, and I just really do like the way Peyton Corinne tackles some heavier topics, but still allows for the romance to flourish and be at the forefront of the story. My next book is Heavenly Bodies. This one I bought at the beginning of the year. Because Imani Iru had announced that her indie published book was going to become traditionally published, and then there was going to be a lot of edits to it. So I ended up selling off my original copy and then buying this traditional one. But this one was a fantasy romance that really surprised me. It's celestial themed, has a bit of an enemies to lovers storyline. And I think the twists and turns in this one were just so captivating to me. And the romance I quite enjoyed, honestly. This one was quite a surprise. The sequel is coming out in the fall, and I'm so glad that my anticipation didn't tank my experience. It really elevated it, and it became one of my favorite fan rows that I've read this year. A book that I recently read, and I also got from Aardvark. I got the Aardvark book box with the code that Kayla from Books and Lala had put out. Your first box could be like $4, and I was been looking at Aardvark, and that month there were a few books that I was interested in getting, so I got Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang. This one follows a very complicated friendship between two art students, and it follows themes of friendship and jealousy and obsession and slight competition between female friendships. I thought it was an interesting read. I think I have a vlog coming up with this book in there, but I really do like the way Aardvark puts in their logo within the book design. It's not too distracting, and it really just fits, and it's this really nice matte type of hardcover shell that they have going on, and it has the same color scheme as the book cover. So, my first Aardvark box, the quality of it has really knocked it out of the park, and I'm just so glad that I saw that code that Kayla had, because $4 for a book is, you can't find that here unless you're buying it for resale maybe, but for a new hardcover with really good quality and no annoying logo and spine change, I think that is such a great steal. And then I also got another book in for my book subscription that month, and that is Bat Eater and Other Names for Cora Zhang by Kylie Lee Baker. This one, the logo isn't as involved, but I think it's still put in a place that's not entirely too distracting. The book kicks off with her witnessing the murder of her oldest sister and her kind of dealing with the beginnings of the COVID pandemic, and also experiencing this hate crime and kind of experiencing the PTSD from that experience, and also the grief of losing somebody in such a violent way. It was a great horror, my first time reading Kylie Lee Baker, and I was so enthralled with the prose and the writing style that was in this book. Do check trigger warnings, it's quite grotesque, quite detailed, very vivid. It was a book that really impacted me, and one that I was very thankful that I read, despite some of the batshit crazy things that I had to read in here. And my last book for this book haul is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. This one is a fantasy novel, an adult fantasy, that was put on my radar from one of my friends who'd read it and said it was I think he gave it a 4 or 5 star, something, a high rating. I had not heard about it before, and so I had read it via audio first, and then I decided to get myself a copy. But this one follows a kind of kingdom where they have different factions based off of like these animals that they study under. So I think there's like raven, hound, fox, bear, and a few others. I think it totals up to like 7 or 8. But our main character that we follow, Nima, is the High Raven Scholar, and due to some certain circumstances, she has to end up investigating a murder of somebody from like the Raven House. So it's a mixture of political intrigue, of a competition, of a murder mystery, and it was just so fun and delightful to read. And the twists and turns in this were something that I just was not expecting or anticipating. And because this is an author that I'd never heard of before, I think I had no expectations going into it. And it was just such a fun, brilliant time to be in this world. But with that, that is all the books that I have hauled so far this year. I think that adds up to 15 books, which honestly, with my goal of not buying as many books this year, that is a great number thus far. We are in the middle of June, so I have like roughly 6 months left of this year, and there's not that many that are on my radar, so I don't know if my hauled number will grow that much at the end of this year. But if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have nothing to say, let's leave some raven emojis or bird emojis in the comments for the Raven Scholar. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!